Lynk is a professor emeritus of law at Western University and a former UN Special Rapporteur for human rights in the occupied Palestinian territory. He joins us now live from the city of London in Canada. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us. I want to start with this report by Francesca Albanese. You know, she's taken a lot of heat in recent years for her criticism of Israel. Our correspondent in Gaza said today she's one of the few people willing to call things like they are. What do you make of this report? What stands out to you the most?
This is an outstanding report, in my view. I've spent the last day reading and rereading it. It puts a spotlight on an area of that maintains the Israeli occupation, the Israeli war on Gaza, the Israeli apartheid that we don't often discuss in the media, which is the corporate involvement in the Israeli economy, particularly in the military weapons that supply Israel, as well as in big tech. Those are issues that are vastly under-discussed, I think, in most corporate media that we have in the global north. And her report, I think, is stirring quite a bit of waves in the global north with respect to the specific mention of companies who are involved in aiding and abetting and assisting the Israeli occupation.
Can I ask you then about this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation? Because one of the key criticisms, there are many, have been that we don't actually know who's funding this group. We don't actually know who's behind it. Could this be one more example of people profiting off of Palestinian suffering? And can I also ask you, with all of these criticisms, particularly this new Associated Press report and video, do you think there is any salvaging this group? Is there any working it over? Is there any, them taking some considerations, changing the what they're doing on the ground, or is it just never going to happen?
Look, I think the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, euphemism if there ever was one, was doomed from the beginning. The fact that over 600 Palestinians have died in the last 5 weeks trying to get to aid, the fact that the Israeli, and in conjunction with the Americans in creating the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, limited the number of food depots to 4, where the UN, prior to March 2025, when Israel blocked all humanitarian aid going into Gaza, had 400 different depots. The whole point of humanitarian aid, particularly in a conflict zone, is to bring the humanitarian aid to where the people are, not to bring the people to where the aid is with respect to this. The comments made by senior UN officials that this is weaponized starvation and this is weaponizing humanitarian aid, I think are very accurate. Reports indicate that the United States has supplied $30 million to fund the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It is run by both the Israeli army and by U.S. military contractors. And this is why we have such chaos, such bloodshed going on here. There's absolutely nothing that I think an experienced humanitarian aid administrator can look at and say there's anything positive with respect to what's been going on.
Yeah, certainly. And when you talk about the criticisms, you just mentioned, for example, that aid is not available to the entirety of the Gaza Strip. These are aid centers, as you mentioned, considered a euphemism, that are really only available in the south of the Gaza Strip. So number one, they're not available to, for example, Palestinians in the north, where we know starvation has been an issue for a very long time. Humanitarian organizations, experts like yourself, have also said this organization simply does not meet the very basic humanitarian standards. What other criticisms do you have of this group in specific?
Well, besides the huge number of deaths, which is almost unconscionable going on, the fact that starving Palestinians have to walk 5, 10, 15 kilometers in order to go into these militarized pens in order to get the food for the day, the fact that there's somewhere between 70 to 100 trucks of humanitarian aid entering, when there was a ceasefire between the end of January and the beginning of March, there were somewhere between 600 and 700 trucks going in. I think the other principal criticism we can raise with respect to the Humanitarian Foundation is the fact that it violates virtually all of the basic principles of humanitarian aid, of neutrality, of independence, of transparency, and of course humanity. None of those, I think, could be attributed to the way in which it's conducted its work over the last 5 to 6 weeks. And this will be seen, I think, as a huge stain on both Israel's reputation and the reputation of the United States.
Thank you so much, Professor Lynk, for giving us your time and your thoughts tonight. Appreciate it.